Howdy, y'all. Good afternoon. A lot of people are here, huh? Hello. How's everyone today? Hiya, Choppy. Kingus, good day. Hello, Sue. Ben. Taking your mom around Cambridge, Kingus. Good job. Hello. Wow. Aberfan. Aberfan disaster. Am I saying that right? I'm never sure. It looks like Aberfan. It's Welsh, though. Could be anything. If I'm saying that wrong, let me know. But you've heard of it, probably. I'm assuming. Yeah, I was reading about it last night. Okay, I'm saying it right, Choppy. Hi, Terry. Yeah, I was reading about it. You know, in one of our live streams, Aberrant, Sue says, not Aberfan, Aberfan, Abervan. So it's more of a V. Okay. I knew there must be something. Because I was like, it's in Wales. But we were talking in one of our live streams, and it was the one about Yorkshire, Sue. I think you brought up the worst mining disaster in England, oak pits, I think. Anyway, it got me looking. Last night, while I was looking around, trying to think of an idea, wondered what the worst one was. And this one came up. And then I was like, wow, it was, that was quite a disaster. So yeah, that's the topic today because I got interested. Man, out today came Warwick and rugby tackles. And you got your members only. Yesterday was the Dying Pubs video. Choppy, you don't like that guy? Who is that guy? Did you know that guy, Choppy? Choppy had commented that guy was annoying or something. He doesn't like him. Yeah, it was terrible, Kingus, and it was awful soon. This Aberfan disaster. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about some other disasters that have happened. And yeah, they're all horrible. This one was really bad. Oh, you don't know who he was, Choppy? His voice was going through you. Okay. I mean, that makes sense. That makes sense. I don't know who he was. I thought maybe you did. Yeah, I had a little trouble understanding it. Um, and then out after the live stream for members early release, and that ends in like 9 days membership. That'll end in like 9 days. But members early release right now after the live stream is Whitby Goth Weekend Festival. And rude place names that y'all have there in England. What is wrong with y'all? We have some too in the US. Places that are just unfortunately named. So you live in the mining community, you felt that? Yeah. I mean, also the US has a lot of coal mining history. And so, yeah. I get it. You feel it, especially if you're living in a mining community. You said your dad was associated with coal as a, maybe as a wholesaler or something. I think you said that when we were talking about the winter storm that happened and everybody was short on coal. But yeah, rude place names, that comes out. And then the members only that comes out, these come out right after the live stream. It's a video about Southeast England. So you may see me do more videos that are like about maybe an area instead of a, hey Colton Miller, producing Coal Towns. Good to have you. Miller is a family name for my family. My great-grandparents were the Millers. My grandfather's middle name was Miller. My nephew's first name is Miller. And I have a grandson with a middle name, Miller. It's a good name. We passed it along from my great-grandparents. So good to have you, Colton. Can you come from a coal town, huh? Do you mind telling us which one, or you just says produced from coal towns? Where are you from, Colton? Love to know, if you don't mind saying. But yeah, so it hits home, right? If you're from a coal family, or these type of disasters are not good. So yeah, I may be doing some videos that are about kind of areas or regions, because I'm trying to come up with new places to look at that are maybe smaller and harder to find. That Southeast England gave me a few ideas, like Rye and Northiam, and looking at the Seven Sisters. And so that's why I'm doing videos like that. You saw one that just came out about the 10 most underrated places in the UK, because it's helping me to find some other places. So before we get into Aberfan, a couple of things just about the channel. Y'all know, like, I like to talk about what's going on with the channel. And also, it is right now, it's like 13 outside. It's supposed to be 16 later. But Saturday, they're predicting snow in Dallas. And that sends Dallas into, it's great, it's crazy. So yeah, we might get snow in Dallas. Normally, if they predict snow here, nothing happens. Now, if they predict freezing rain or sleet, we do get that. And that makes everything covered in ice, and it's really bad. But we don't get snow much, and when they predict snow, it usually doesn't happen. But they're predicting snow on Saturday. It's supposed to be high of -2 and low of -11. I'm talking in Celsius. Here on Saturday. What that means is, like, on Friday, the grocery stores will be packed with people. And everyone's like, oh, it's going to snow one day. I'll need to buy 2 months worth of water, a month worth of toilet paper, a month's worth of bread, eggs. And then if you go to the store on Friday, it'll be packed with people, and they'll be out of all those things. Because we might get snow one day. And then, of course, it'll be gone the next day, because it'll warm back up. That is Texas. They're not used to snow. But my channel, man, is so weird now. In the last 2 weeks, I get, I was for a while, prior to 2 weeks ago, I was getting 1 new subscriber a day or 2. But now in the last 2 weeks, I've already got like 150. So I'm getting, now, I used to get a lot more than that, but it's just weird how the channel does. Yeah, they overreact, I guess. They overreact to just, oh, it might snow. Although they are predicting 80% chance of snow on Saturday. But, so the channel's growing, and videos are getting a lot more watches that are older, just in the last 2 weeks. I've also got more American viewers recently. Now about 13% of my viewers are Americans, and probably Anglophiles watching my channel. And older videos are getting a lot more watches and comments. The Glasgow video, which is like over a month old, has got like 1,000 views in the last 2 weeks. That never was happening before. A video would come out, it would get whatever views it got for the first day or two, and then that would be it. Now I noticed now my videos, when they first come out, they don't do great on the first day. Like, for instance, that one about the football rules, it got like 100, 200 views on day one. I was like, that video's going nowhere. But it's now, I don't know, 1.5 thousand views or something. So now my new videos are building slow, and my older videos are getting more watches and comments, and I'm getting more subscribers. But like today's videos that came out, Warwick and rugby tackles, they're not hardly getting any views right now. But they may build. It's so weird. I can't tell. Now I can't tell if a video is doing good or not. I used to could tell. Yeah, Genghis, the channel's just changing, the algorithm's changing. Apparently some of my older videos are getting suggested by YouTube on people's homepage. That must not have been happening before. It's so weird. It's just all a new experience for me. So I'm like, huh. I started out, first 2 weeks, no views. And then boom, I started getting a lot of views and getting like 100 subscribers a day. During that first month, it took me only 1 month to hit 1,000 subscribers. And then it slowed way down. And now it's changed again. So I don't know, it's weird. I guess it's not weird, I guess it's just interesting to me. Thanks, Genghis. I appreciate anyone who hypes my videos. But Abervan, let's talk about it. And so when we had talked before, we were talking about Yorkshire. Let's talk about Yorkshire live stream. And the Oak Point mining disaster came up, I believe. And the word Oak's Pit in Barnsley came up. And the word colliery came up. No problem, Terry. See you later. Colliery came up, and I never heard that. I was like, and it just means the coal mine. And then we just call them coal mines in the U.S. So to get started here, I was like, I want to look that up. I looked up because I'm not from the coal. I've lived in coal areas, but my family's not associated with it. I don't know a lot about it. I was like, maybe we do use that word, coalery. And I looked it up, put that in a search. Do Americans use that term? And it said yes. It's an old-fashioned American term for a coal mine. So no, we don't use it. We call them just coal mines. I think I'm saying that right. I wrote it down phonetically. Colliery is what you call a coal mine. And then we have the last name, you probably do too, Collier. A lot of folks have that last name, just means someone that works in the mine. A Collier. That's how we pronounce the last name, Collier. But colliery is what you call a coal mine. So I figured that out. And we don't use it. Maybe we used to. And so I did look up, because we had talked before about the Oaks pit. And I looked up just some of your major mining disasters in Britain before I talk specifically about Aberfan. And also mentioned the one that was the most recent. Okay. It says that almost a century ago, the worst mining disaster in UK history occurred, killing 439 men and boys working in, and I'm sorry if I say this wrong, I don't know, Singhind? That's definitely probably wrong, but in Glamorgan, in Scotland, in 1913. A gas explosion wrecked the mine. It took the unwanted title of worst disaster nearly 50 years earlier, after the previous worst disaster at Oaks Pit in Barnsley, Yorkshire, on December 12, 1866, when 361 workers died in two separate explosions. Other major disasters include the deaths of 295 men at the Albion Colliery, and also in Glamorgan, in a gas explosion in 1894. At the Prince of Wales Colliery in Abercorn, Monmouthshire, an explosion in September 1878 killed 270 men and boys out of the 350 who had begun their shift that day. So these are in addition to Aberfan. And apparently this one, they killed 439 men and boys in Glamorgan in 1913 with a gas explosion. It was the most deadly. And there's others. But recently in Glycian Colliery, not that recently, but let's see. 3 men were killed when a section of a roof fell down in Nottinghamshire. But obviously, now it's much safer. And those don't happen very often. And yeah, that one in Barnsley, where Sue is from originally, the Oaks Pit in Barnsley, Yorkshire, on 12th of December 1866, 361 workers died in two separate explosions. That is, to this day, the worst mining disaster in England. There's been worse in Scotland, and this one at Aberfan was horrible. What happened there? But that's some of your mining disasters. We've had our share in the U.S. too. It's a dangerous job, especially back in the day. But having coal for both you as well as the U.S., it helped fuel the Industrial Revolution. I mean, starting there. If it hadn't been for your coal reserves, you couldn't have accomplished a lot of things that he did accomplish, and led the world, not kind of, and led the world in. But it was dangerous, no question. It's a dangerous thing. Uh, yeah, the Oaks Colliery and Hoyle Mill. During the afternoon, there was a huge explosion. Many volunteer rescuers were still down the pit the next day when another explosion bigger than the first took place. With the death toll recorded at 361, although some put it at 383. That's the Oaks pit, the worst disaster in England. The worst one in Wales is the one in Glamorgan. I'm sorry, I said that was in Scotland. The one in Glamorgan was 439 deaths, and the worst in Scotland, it says, was at 207 deaths. Might have got that wrong, or might be competing information. So let's look at Aberfan though. You all know about it, huh? The William Pitt disaster in 1911 was Whitehaven's worst. Now, in Whitehaven, Choppy, they dug under the sea, did they not? Did that disaster happen under the sea? The William Pitt disaster? Or am I wrong? I thought, yeah, the second explosion, Sue caught the rescuers. Yeah, they were still down. Then the next day, another explosion. The Oaks Pit. But yeah, Choppy, I thought some of you, they did, right? They dug under the ocean there to get coal, or under the sea. Oof, that's scary. These people were brave. They're brave, they're hard workers, and they're most certainly underpaid, right? Risking their life. But you did need the coal, and it did make life better and everything better. It was one of your good assets. So the Aberfan disaster, you all know about it, right? It happened in 1966. Like Sue says, that's not that long ago. October 21st, 1966. It resulted in 144 deaths. That's not, that's not even as bad as the Oaks Pit in number of deaths. But it included 116 children. And that's what makes it, so tragic. And this is October 21st, 1966. There's photos of it. I put a photo up on my live stream thumbnail. It is a pretty famous photo of the disaster, the aftermath. So yes, not that long ago. Some of you can remember. Or maybe remember hearing stories of it. It says here, coal was long the lifeblood of industry in South Wales, with whole communities dependent on the top quality steam coal found beneath the valleys and hills. One such community was Aberfan, a village close to, some of these names I can't say, but about 20 miles northwest of Cardiff. That's where Aberfan is, in the historic county of Glamorgan. Opened in 1875, Aberfan's Vale Colliery became the biggest pit in the South Wales coalfield, generating huge quantities of waste. For half a century, this waste was dumped in spoiled tips on the flanks of the mountain directly above Aberfan. For half a century. For 50 years, they've just been dumping the waste up there. The underlying geology of this area consisted of sandstone, riddled with underground springs. One Friday morning in October 1966, subsidence occurred in tip number 7 after heavy rain, precipitating a slide of liquefied debris that flowed swiftly down the mountainside towards the village below. reaching a depth of 12 meters, that's 40 feet, and a reported speed of more than 80 miles an hour. 40 feet deep, 80 miles an hour going down the mountain. It hit Aberfan and smashed into the Pantglis Junior School, which stood immediately below the spoil tip, minutes after the pupils had assembled. They just got to school. Min- Minnie and Aberfan heard the ominous rumble, but the mist meant nothing could be seen. Before evasive action could be taken, the school was engulfed. Villagers raced to the scene and started digging with their hands, soon joined by rescue personnel, but few children were pulled alive from the slurry. When the final death toll was known, 116 youngsters had perished. Along with 5 teachers. There were additional casualties in the village. National Coal Board Chairman Lord Robins suggested that the disaster could not have been predicted, despite the fact that safety concerns had frequently been raised, and it took a lengthy public inquiry to apportion blame to the Coal Board. Controversially, the board appropriated money from the disaster fund subscribed by the public for victims and their families to help pay for the clearance of remaining tips. Colliery was closed in 1989. Queen Elizabeth II visited the site 8 days after the disaster, a delay that occasioned criticism and for which she later expressed regret. She visited Aberfan 3 more times over the years, the last in 2012, to dedicate a new primary school. There's a memorial garden there today that commemorates victims. So that is a brief overview of what happened that day. An avalanche, like Genghis said. They didn't have a chance. Like Sue said, even though they heard something, they looked up at the mountain. It was just a mist. They couldn't really see what was coming. Yeah, like Coal Board wouldn't take responsibility, Genghis said. Trying to save money. You know, they've been stacking it up there for 50 years, it said. Nearly 50 years. And of course, hadn't they heard of gravity? It was going to come down. Yeah, it is tragic. Not the highest death toll in Wales, Scotland, or England, but 116 kids. Yeah, I was just looking up because we had talked about the Oaks disaster, and I was just looking up information to see if there's something in coal mines that I might want to learn about, your history, or your collieries, you call them. And I was kind of looking up that word to see if we used it in the U.S. I just got interested from Sue telling me about the one in Yorkshire. Yeah, the rain is what unsettled the Genghis. And then all of a sudden, this story popped up. And I was like, 1966? This happened? It wasn't that long ago for some of us. I mean, I wasn't born yet, but I remember the 70s. So I know some of you can remember 66, maybe. And I was just, when I started reading the story, I was like, oh, wow. Because, of course, I haven't heard about it. You probably haven't heard about, we've had some disasters here in the U.S. coal mine related in the past. And yeah, I was just like, wow, it was just before you were born, Adrian. Yeah, it was just before I was born too. But I'm just saying it's not that long ago. And when I started reading about it, I was like, oh, wow. And then I've seen now photos of it, and I'm sure you've seen that one too, where it just shows how it just slid right down into that school. And they just got there. Yeah, 60 years this year. It's not that long ago. Not that long ago. So that was a brief overview. I do have a little more in-depth details, but Sue remembers it, I think she said. The garden is in the footprint of the school. Yeah, it says there's a memorial garden there. It's just so sad. And especially, you know, what caused it? You want to know what caused it? Because I know the exact cause of this disaster. They might have investigated it, and the coal board didn't want to take responsibility. But I can tell you, sitting here right now, I know the cause. Greed. It's just greed. I mean, come on, you're stacking up stuff for almost 50 years on top of a mountain. And it rains a lot, and then they got a bunch of rain. You gotta know better. But as Ginga said, cutting corners to save costs. Well, Gingas, I don't, did anyone go to prison? I don't think so. I don't think so. But I do have an article that's a little more in-depth that might tell us. I didn't see anything in it as I was looking. I didn't see anybody. I didn't see anybody getting put to jail, but they should have been. You know, what probably happened is somebody rich, in the end, just got richer. Yeah, it's a nice area, isn't it, Adrian? You see, when your sister lives near the area, I mean, isn't Wells all, every bit of it kind of have its own beauty? I think. Probably would be a nice area. I can see a map, kind of where it is. I mean, a bunch of names of places I can't pronounce, but. Okay, it says there were 7 spoil tips on the hills above Aberfan. Tip 7 is the one that slipped into the village. It was started in 1958. Okay, so that tip had only been there for about 8 years. But they had been doing this. It says there were 7 spoil tips. This is number 7. They have been doing this. The other article, which was from Britannica, said they'd been doing this for 50 years. The tip was partly based on ground from which the springs emerged. So it was wet ground in the first place. And after heavy rains, the tip was saturated, and approximately 140,000 cubic yards of spoil slipped down the side of the hill and into the school in the main village. The building hit was a local junior school where lessons had just begun. 5 teachers, 116 children were killed. An official inquiry was chaired by Lord Justice Edmund Davies. The report placed the blame squarely on the National Coal Board. The organization's chairman, Lord Robbins, was criticizing for making misleading statements and for not providing clarity as to the National Coal Board's knowledge of the presence of water springs on the hillside. Neither the National Coal Board nor any of its employees were prosecuted, Genghis, and the organization was not fined. Nothing happened. King, is to answer your question. Nothing happened. This Lord Robbins was making misleading statements even. Scot-free, as we say. Nothing happened to them. The Aberfan Disaster Memorial Fund was established on the day of the disaster. It received nearly 88,000 contributions, totaling 1.75 million. That was a lot of money. The remaining tips were removed only after a lengthy fight by Aberfan residents against resistance from the National Coal Board and the government on the grounds of cost. The site's clearance was paid for by a government grant and a forced contribution of £150,000 taken from the Memorial Fund. In 1997, the British government paid back £150,000 to the ADMF, and in 2007, the Welsh government donated £1.5 million to the fund and £500,000 to the Aberfan Education Charity as recompense. So even as late as 2007, it's still getting paid for and things are still happening. I might have said dollars at one point, but I meant pounds. There's interesting museums there now, Adrian. Yeah, Tom Jones, Richard Burton fathers, both coal miners. It makes sense, a lot of coal mining going on there. So yeah, nothing happened. People were still paying for it. And it's 1966. You know, not that the Oaks, not that these other disasters that happened in the 1800s, not that they're without blame, maybe for putting miners in, or colliers in dangerous positions. There's always been greed at the time. They've always probably taken advantage of the workers. But in 1966, they knew a lot more than they knew in the 1800s. They should have known better. They just were truly cutting corners and stacking that where they stacked that one tip. That's bull tip. Crazy. Okay. The first bull tip from the coal mine was deposited during the 1910s, it says. So they started doing this in 1910 and nothing ever happened. So they just kept doing it. Then they put it on a particularly wet spot where the springs came out. Then it rained. They knew better. It was probably just because it was convenient to put it there. And yeah, it's a tragic waste of young life. Hundreds, all those children. It's making me sad. I'm not gonna lie. It's kind of breaking me up having to read that. It was hard. Because it's so sad. Over just money. And then nothing happened to anybody. And nobody went to jail. Or anything like that. It talks more about the colliery who started it. The first was sunk on August 23rd, 1869 by John Nixon in the area. In 1966, Aberfan had grown to about 5,000, most of whom were employed in the industry. Obviously, everybody that worked there and all those kids' parents probably worked in the coal mine. The whole town, 5,000 people, were probably all associated in one way or the other with the coal. And yeah, the children were the same age as you, Sue, at the time. And you had your family was connected to the coal industry. I bet you felt that. And you were familiar with coal mining, history in Barnsley and the disaster that happened there in that area. So I bet you felt that. Hey, Nicola, good to see you. We are kind of talking about a bummer of a disaster, but I think it's good to remember And it's good. I mean, we're still doing it. We're still letting greed ruin people and can lead to these deaths. With big companies, I mean, that's what the world's still about. Resources, minerals, who's in the news recently, oil, it's greed. And it can cause these disasters, lives lost. But yeah, those people who live there, they work there. You know what I mean? And then their children die. That's what I'm talking about, Adrian. We should learn from history, but history teaches us nothing. We should learn, but we don't. Here's some about the rescue efforts. After the landslide stopped, local residents rushed to the school and began digging through the rubble, moving material by hand with garden tools. At 9:25 a.m., police received a phone call from a local resident who said, "I've been asked to inform you that there's been a landslide at the school. The tip has come down." The fire brigade received a call about the same time. Calls were then made to local hospitals, the ambulance service, and the local civil defense corps. The first miners from the Aberbank Colliery arrived about 20 minutes after the disaster, having been raised from the coal seams where they had been working. They directed the early digging, knowing the unplanned excavation could lead to collapse of the spoil and the remnants of the buildings. They worked in organized groups under the control of their pit managers. The first casualties from the wreckage at the school arrived at the hospital at 9:50 a.m. The remaining rescued casualties all arrived before 11 a.m. 22 children, of whom was dead on arrival, and 5 adults. A further 9 casualties were sent to another hospital. No survivors were found after 11 a.m. Of the 144 people who died in the disaster, 116 were children, mostly between the ages of 7 and 10. 109 of the children died inside the school. 5 of the adults who died were teachers at the school. An additional 6 adults and 29 children were also injured. The 10:30 a.m. BBC News summary led with the story of the disaster. The result was that thousands of volunteers traveled to Aberfan to help, although their efforts often hampered the work. I mean, it was what did it say? By 11 a.m., they weren't finding any survivors. Nicola, we're talking about Aberfan, coal mining, Colliery. So yeah, no survivors were found after 11. It happened first thing in the morning. The first calls came at 9:25. The colliers, the miners, they came up to help, but it was futile. They first pulled 22 children from the rubble. No, they first pulled 22 children from the rubble. One was dead. And then that was it. They got 22 children out. No, well, 21 survived children out at the beginning. And then it was just no more. No more survivors. I mean, it goes on and on. It talks a lot about corruption in this more detailed website, and just how the National Coal Board tried to shirk responsibility, try to do everything they could to do so. There were tribunals formed. There's a lot of finger pointing. I'm just wrapping this up because this part. I'm just summing it up because haven't we all heard the story before? Isn't that what happens? So you got politicians who have to be like, oh my gosh, this is horrible because they're elected, and so they gotta raise a bunch of ruckus to act like they care. Oh, and they start pointing the fingers at the National Coal Board, who just dodges and and ducks and misleads, and then they point the finger back at the politicians, and then they just go back and forth, and they make a big ruckus until the people kind of, sadly, the public, it starts to wear thin, and it confuses everybody, and they don't know what happened, and then in the end, no one takes the blame. No one pays the price. It's the same song and dance. They always do. Where it's all just fake. And those politicians, they're just doing that to act like they care. But in the end, it comes down to money, and people are making money, and nobody took the blame. One of the survivors said a teacher shielded her, Sue. I'm sure. Would I mean? I'm sure, right? You would too. I would. If there was a kid near me, I'd try to save. But yeah, no, so sad games, but no responsibility. It was shameful. And I'm not really like, man, I hope I'm not offending you by saying, like, look what your country did. No, we do it too. We do the same thing. We do the same thing here. There's a disaster. Katrina was a good example. If you're familiar with Hurricane Katrina, when it hit New Orleans, and then it was nobody's fault in the end. It was nobody's fault. The dams burst. They knew better that it couldn't hold up to that. And everybody, the politicians pointed the finger at the federal politicians blamed the local politicians. Everybody blamed everybody. It went on for months. And in the end, no one took responsibility. Hey, no problem, Ben. The boiler man, repairman is there. I'll tell him, good job. Offer him some water. I don't know. I'm always in somebody's house, like, doing work. So you gotta treat those people good. Oh, well, Adrian, if there's some on the moon they can mine, you know they will. But yeah, see you, Ben. Yeah, there's no gravity. It'll just all float out into space. They'll find a way to make a disaster. But no, I wasn't like blaming your country for this. I was saying that's what politicians everywhere always do when there's a disaster. They pretend like they care long enough till the public tires of the story, and then nothing's really done. No one ever takes the blame. And that's why we don't learn from history. If there's no consequences, then there's no lesson taught in these cases. So yeah, I mean, I could go on, but that's what happened. Crazy. So yeah, and it's good not to forget about these poor kids, ages 7 and 10, and what a loss. That who knows, what they could have been. Of course, I love literature. Out of those kids, 116 was one of them, and the next Shakespeare, we don't know. Was one of them the next great leader? We don't know. But they all would have made their mark, given the chance. 7 to 10 years old, 116 of them, and they just got to school that day. I mean, some of them might have just grown up to be colliers or miners. But in that way, they also would have been contributing to society. They didn't get the chance. That's sad. But a few more minutes left in my live stream. It was interesting to me to read about these things, and it just caught my eye. I figured you all probably knew about it, but I didn't. So that is why I do these live streams, as I'm trying to learn more and more about the UK. But, man, talking about live streams, I wish I could attract more people to the live streams. Don't really know how. I actually have been perusing. Yeah, it's a famous disaster in your recent history, Adrian. I have been perusing some other YouTubers' live streams. I've seen some of my followers on some other YouTubers' live streams, some of my subscribers. And they just vary. Some of them don't have topics at all. Of course, we don't have very many people in our live stream. So sometimes it's just somebody talking, really with no subject or topic. Sometimes they're very specific, but more like just like Q&As. I don't know, mine are pretty, I don't know. I'm just trying to think of live stream ideas. What should I do that might attract more people? Anybody got any ideas? We only got a couple minutes and then I'm going to wrap things up. But I always like to open it up to you in case anyone has any ideas. I mean, obviously, I think if I move the time of my live stream, it might help. But I have done that before and it didn't really make any difference. It didn't seem to. Uh, it's just super convenient for me to do it first thing when I get up instead of in the middle of my day having to stop down and do it. But it might help if I consistently did it at a later time. Although I do know most of my subscribers are of a retirement age. I can see that 80% of my subscribers are older. So I'm assuming a lot of them are home during the day if they're retired or of retirement age. So I don't know. Any ideas? I do topics that are normally UK related. I see people live stream, they just talk about their day or whatever. But they're bigger channels, and so they automatically get a lot more people on their live stream. You semi-retire and you work early mornings, Adrian. Yeah, I think a lot of people, I think most of my subscribers can't. Yeah, Genghis tried pet. I told you my cat. Or if I had a cute pet or a cute girl. I don't have either. Well, I have a cute, my cat is cute, but she doesn't like to be held. I couldn't keep her on screen. Uh, I don't know, I do topics that interest me. What do y'all think? Is it good kind of the way I did it? And then I also talk maybe for 20 minutes about other stuff that's not of the topic. Yeah, good for you, Adrian. 4 years of full-time work. Well done. Okay, well, I guess not too many live stream ideas. A hobby? Let me go to Hobbie. What is that? Is that a typo? Hobby? Just a hobby? Like do a hobby during my live streams? Yeah, I saw one live stream the girl was just talking about her music playlist. They can't play music during a live stream, but that was what the whole live stream was. She's just talking about songs on her playlist. That's a time killer, but I don't know how interesting that is. If I did that, I don't know, a hobby, Nicholas says, I think. Either that's a typo or that's a word I don't know. Hmm. Driving about America? What do you mean? You want me to go drive around? I don't even like to drive. I do go on walks, and I have taken you out places. Yeah, it was a hobby. Try a niche subject you're very knowledgeable in. Yeah, see, normally what I do, I mean, getting us up may be a good idea. What I do is things I'm not so knowledgeable in, for the most part. I did do the one about Robert Louis Stevenson, and I don't know, I felt like it was, kind of felt like I was boring just talking about it, because like, unless you really love literature, I mean, something I'm very knowledgeable in, so I do one about cycling. I don't know if that's gonna, I mean, it's a good idea. I don't know. I don't know how to attract. It's weird. I have a background in marketing. And for YouTube, there's certain things you can do, but a lot of it just comes down to the algorithm. UK TV shows. Didn't we talk? I don't think I've done a whole live stream on UK TV. I could. That's a pretty good idea. Yeah, I don't think I've done a live stream on British television. But I could do cycling or something like that I really love. But anyway, I was saying you can't market a lot of YouTube. It just comes down to the algorithm. I mean, I can market my channel on social media, you know, but some of it is just like, you know, I can move my live stream around at times. You know, I can do some things. A lot of it's just down to the algorithm, which I can't control. And with a marketing background, I'm often at a loss. Like, oh, what do I do? I can't, I can't do anything. Yeah, you have great cycling routes around the UK, Adrian. I'm familiar already. Take you on a cycle, Nicola? That might be bumpy. I don't have a GoPro that would make it smoother. It would just be a blur if I took you on a cycle ride. You just see blurry stuff going by, bouncing up and down. I'm going to continue to go back out. I am going to take you on a live stream to the British Emporium. Probably once I stop working or get a day off. Right now I'm working every day. I mean, and I think those are good. You could like those live streams where I go out and show you something. I think you all enjoy it. It doesn't necessarily attract viewers, though. I don't get more viewers on those days. So I don't know. I don't know how to get more people to get to the live stream. But I'd like to. The only real idea that I think might work is changing the time, but it's so hard for me to do that. And I have tried it without, you know who showed up? You. The same people that always do. A lot of YouTubers ask advice from more successful YouTubers, from more successful. I don't know any. I don't know any YouTubers besides Michelle. What do I do? How do I ask for advice? It's in the comments. I don't know any of them. If they have an email, I could email them. Some YouTubers have an email like I do. I mean, I don't really know who I'd ask. have been in contact with the guy from Tyneside Life and from, was it Simply Whitby? I have talked to those guys, YouTubers, before, but I don't know. I don't know any of the YouTubers that are other Americans that react to the U.S. But I could probably contact some of them. They're mostly friendly Genghis, but a lot of them aren't. Some of them don't like reactors. And if there are other Americans that react to the UK, they might not be open to giving me advice. I mean, why would they? They might be like, no, I'm not helping this guy take some about, the Hickson Diaries. I watched some of her live stream. I saw you there, Genghis. Genghis gets in her live stream too. Yeah, she just rambles for the most part. She kind of rambles on. But she has more followers, and so. And hers are, I mean, the ones I saw, she's asking for money. Basically, in her live stream, she's asking for money. Kalani Ghost Hunter from the U.S. He's in the UK doing ghosts, yeah. I've heard he's so good, and I've looked at the channel, but they are pretty long, his videos. But, alright, I'm right at an hour. Just talking about my live streams. I don't think there's much I can do, really, except for be patient. As my channel grows, my live streams will also grow. But I always like to try to think, is there anything I could do? But that was an interesting topic today for me. I enjoyed learning, even though it's sad, and I did enjoy getting sad. And you might have noticed I got a little choked up a couple times. I love children. And yeah, it was hard. But good to remember, and I'm glad I increased my knowledge about some of your coal mining disaster history. All of them tragic. Some of them much higher in death toll than Aberfan. But it was, I'm glad I looked it up. Glad I looked it up. That was really fun. So, to everybody, have a good day. It was good having you in the live stream, Genghis. Adrian, you have a good day. Ben left already, but I hope he has a great day. Nicola, appreciate your input always. Adrian, thanks, Sue. Yeah, Sue, y'all have a great day. Terry also had to leave early, but I hope he has a good day. I think, yeah, Ben too. Yeah, it's good to see you all. Choppy. Have a good day. Colton Miller, I don't know if you're still around, but it's nice having you here today. Yeah, y'all were all kind of early when I got on. Y'all were already here. But cheers to everyone. Alive in the U.S. cave, Genghis says, no, there are some caves in Texas, not around Dallas so much. But cheers to y'all. Hope you have a great day. Wayne from Dallas, Texas, signing.